When the world forgets its teachers, wisdom withers like an untended flame. But sometimes, one last spark is enough to set the world ablaze. This is the story of an old philosopher, a forgotten school, and the final student who carried a legacy that would outlive them both. The sun dipped low over Athens, spilling molten gold across the marble stones of the Lyceum. Once, this place had thundered with the voices of hundreds of students eager to learn from one of the greatest minds in history. But now silence. Only the rustling olive trees and the tired footsteps of an old man filled the air. Aristotle, bent with age, walked slowly through the courtyard. His hair, once dark, had turned to silver threads. His hands trembled as he leaned on a staff, yet his eyes, sharp, steady, burning still, carried the weight of 1,000 questions. Once, he had taught kings. Once, he had mentored a young man named Alexander, who would become Alexander the Great. He had written of ethics, politics, the soul, and the stars. But the world had changed. Athens now prized wealth and power more than wisdom. And so, the Lyceum stood almost empty. Aristotle sat alone on a stone bench, tracing lines in the dust. For a moment, he wondered, had it all been in vain? Had his flame gone out? It was then that a shadow fell across the courtyard. A boy no older than 17 stood hesitantly at the gate. His clothes were plain, his sandals worn, but his eyes glimmered with curiosity. "Master," the boy began, voice trembling, "they say philosophy is dead. They say the world no longer needs questions, only answers. But I do not believe them. Will you teach me?" Aristotle raised his head, startled. Few came here anymore. For a long moment, he simply stared at the boy. And then slowly, he smiled. "Then sit, child," he said. "If the world has forgotten wisdom, perhaps you will remind it." Day after day, the boy returned. Under the shade of olive trees, by the glow of lanterns at dusk, the last lessons of Aristotle unfolded. The philosopher did not lecture in long scrolls of words anymore. His strength was fading. But in short, piercing truths, he carved wisdom into the boy's heart. One evening, Aristotle said, "Educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all." Another day, when the boy asked about courage, Aristotle replied, "Virtue lies in balance. Courage is not reckless boldness, nor cowardly retreat. It is the golden mean between the two." And sometimes when the boy questioned too boldly, Aristotle would smile faintly and remind him, "It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it." The boy listened. He wrote, he argued. And in every exchange, his mind grew sharper, his soul steadier. But Aristotle grew weaker. His steps slowed, his hands shook more often. He knew his time was drawing to an end. One evening, a cicada sang in the warm night air. He called the boy closer. "My last student," Aristotle said, voice barely above a whisper. "I cannot promise you the world will listen, but I can promise this. If you hold to wisdom, if you live with virtue, you will reshape the world, whether it knows your name or not." The boy's eyes burned with tears. "And what if they reject me, as they rejected you?" he asked. Aristotle smiled faintly. "Then remember, the roots of education are bitter, but the fruit is sweet." Not long after, Aristotle passed away. The Lyceum fell into silence, its marble halls abandoned to dust and ivy. But the boy, his last student, did not let the flame die. He carried Aristotle's lessons to villages, to marketplaces, to places of power. He spoke not of conquest or wealth, but of balance, justice, and the worth of the human soul. And though history does not record his name, his impact was real. For through him, the seed of Aristotle's wisdom took root in countless others. Great teachers may fade, but their wisdom survives in the hearts of their students. One mind, properly guided, can shape the destiny of thousands. Aristotle's voice may have gone silent, but in the heart of one student, his words grew roots. And from that root, the world was changed. Wisdom is not measured by scrolls or speeches, but by how it lives on in those who practice it. The true legacy of a teacher is not carved in stone, but written in the character of their students. And so, the lesson remains. One flame can light 1,000 others without ever losing its glow. One act of teaching can ripple through generations long after the teacher is gone. The world forgets many names, but it never forgets the power of truth, the weight of virtue, and the endurance of knowledge shared with love. Perhaps Aristotle's own words remind us best. Educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. We carry that lesson forward so that wisdom never dies, but lives on through us.